Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked away from the construction site. The summer heat in Denver was brutal, and after 10 hours of laying concrete and moving steel beams, his body ached in places he forgot existed. His work boots scraped against the sidewalk. As he made his way to the parking lot where his old pickup truck waited, the truck started on the third try, like always. Jake had been meaning to get it fixed for months, but between rent and groceries, there never seemed to be enough money left over. He rolled down the windows instead of using the air conditioning to save gas and pulled. Into the evening traffic, downtown Denver was busy as usual. Office workers in clean shirts and ties walked quickly toward parking garages and bus stops. Jake watched them through his windshield and wondered what it would be like to work in an air-conditioned building all day.
Ow.
Then he remembered how much. He hated being indoors for too long and decided he was better off with his job, even if it meant coming home dirty and tired every day. He stopped at Mickey's Diner on the way home. The same place he ate dinner 3 times a week because their meatloaf reminded him of what his mother used to make before she died. The waitress, an older woman named Betty, knew his order by heart. "The usual, honey?" she asked, as he slid into his regular booth near the window. "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied. "And maybe some of that apple pie, if you've got any left." Betty smiled and walked away. Jake looked out the window at the people passing by on the street. A young couple was arguing about something near the bus stop. An old man fed pigeons from a park bench. A woman in a business suit talked loudly on her phone while walking a small dog. Normal people living normal lives on what seemed like a perfectly normal evening. Jake's food arrived, and he ate slowly while watching the local news on the small television mounted in the corner of the diner. The news anchor talked about a city council meeting and a traffic accident on the highway. Nothing interesting ever happened in Denver, which was exactly how Jake liked it. He had seen enough excitement during his time in the Marines. Now, he just wanted quiet days and peaceful nights. After dinner, Jake drove to his apartment complex on the east side of town. The building was old and needed paint, but the rent was cheap and most of his neighbors were decent people. He parked next to Pete Collins' truck and saw Pete sitting on the front steps of the building, drinking a beer and smoking a cigarette. Pete was about 7 years older than Jake and worked as a long-distance truck driver. He was one of the few people Jake considered a real friend. Pete had also been in the military, though he served in the Army instead of the Marines. They understood each other without needing to talk much. "How was work?" Pete asked as Jake walked up the steps. "Same as always," Jake replied. "Hot and dirty." "You heading out again soon?" "Tomorrow morning? Gotta take a load to Kansas City?" Pete took a long drink from his beer. "Want one?" "I got a cooler full." Jake almost said yes, then remembered he had to be at work early the next morning. "Thanks, but I better not." "Need to. Get some sleep." Pete nodded. "Yeah, me too. See you when I get back." Jake climbed the stairs to his second-floor apartment. The hallway smelled like cooking food and old carpet. He could hear a television playing too loud in one apartment and a baby crying in another. Normal sounds of people living their lives. His apartment was small, but clean. Jake was not the kind of person who left dirty dishes in the sink or clothes on the floor. The military had taught him to keep his space organized, and the habit had stuck. He took a shower, put on clean clothes, and grabbed a beer from the refrigerator. The local news was still on when he turned on his television. The same stories. As the diner, plus the weather forecast, it was going to be hot again tomorrow. Jake was not surprised. It had been hot every day for 2 weeks. He settled into his old couch and flipped through the channels. Cooking show, a movie he had seen. Before, a program about animals in Africa. Nothing held his interest for long. Jake was tired in the way that came from working with his hands all day. His muscles were sore, but it was a good kind of sore. It's a kind that meant he had earned his paycheck. Around 10 o'clock he started to doze off during a late-night talk show. The host was interviewing an actress Jake had never heard of about a movie he would probably never see. He considered going to bed properly, but the couch was comfortable. Skiguchi, and moving seemed like too much effort. Jake woke up briefly around midnight when the show changed to the news again. More of the same stories repeated for people who had missed them earlier. A politician giving a speech about something. Sports scores. The weather forecasts should not change since dinner. He closed his eyes again and listened to the familiar sounds of his neighborhood at night. Cars driving by on the street below. The air conditioner in the apartment next door, cycling on and off. A dog barking somewhere in the distance. Peaceful sounds that helped him relax. At 3:17 in the morning, every electronic device in Jake's apartment shut off at exactly the same time. The television went dark. The digital clock on his microwave went blank. The air conditioner stopped humming. Even the small light on his smoke detector went out. Jake stirred on the couch, sensing that something had changed. The apartment was completely silent in a way it had never been before.
Ouch.
By with I bever by my the one my by when I by when one my by one with my ba with by can by bob and wherever been by when man and way by the way but wait by just absolute quiet. He opened his eyes and saw that the television screen was black. The streetlights outside his window had also gone out. The entire neighborhood was dark, except for the moon and stars. Jake sat up and rubbed his eyes. Power outages happened sometimes, especially during summer when everyone was running air conditioners. But this felt different. Usually when the power went out, you could see lights in other parts of the city. Now everything was dark as far as he could see. He walked to the window and looked out at the street. No house lights, no street lights, no traffic lights at the intersection. Even the emergency lights at the fire station were out. The only movement was a few cars driving slowly without headlights, their drivers probably confused by the sudden darkness. Jake was about to look for a flashlight when all the lights came back on at once. The television resumed playing where it had stopped. The air conditioner started humming again. The digital clocks began blinking 12 o'clock, like they always did after a power outage. The whole thing had lasted less than a minute. Jake looked out the window again and saw that the streetlights were back on. Cars were driving normally with their headlights working. Everything appeared to be back to normal. He shrugged and turned off the television. Power problems were not unusual during hot summer nights. The electrical grid probably could not handle all the air conditioners running at the same time. He made a mental note to mention it to Pete when his friend got back from Kansas City. Jake went to his bedroom and lay down properly this time. The sheets felt cool against his skin, and he was asleep within minutes. He had no way of knowing that the same 47-second blackout had happened everywhere on Earth at exactly the same time. He had no idea that every satellite, every computer, every electronic device on the planet had shut down and restarted in perfect synchronization. Most importantly, Jake had no idea that something in space had been watching and listening and learning about humanity for months. Something that had just finished cataloging every detail about human civilization and had decided that Earth was ready for harvest. Jake's eyes opened slowly. Something was wrong, but his mind could not figure out what it was. The surface under his back felt cold and hard, nothing like his soft mattress. The air smelled strange, like metal and chemicals mixed together. There was a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He tried to sit up and immediately hit his head on something solid above him. Pain shot through his skull as he fell back down. Jake blinked several times trying to clear his vision. Above him was a smooth, dark surface that reflected his face like a mirror. Panic started to build in his chest. This was not his bedroom. This was not his apartment. Jake pressed his hands against the sides of what seemed to be a narrow space, like a box or container. The walls felt warm and slightly soft, as if they were alive somehow. "Hello?" he called out. His voice sounded muffled and strange. A woman's voice answered from somewhere nearby. "Thank God, someone else is awake." Through a transparent wall to his right, he could see a woman with dark hair wearing what looked like medical scrubs. She was sitting up in a space exactly like his, pressing her hands against the clear barrier between them. "Where are we?" Jake asked. "I don't know," the woman replied. "I'm Dr. Lisa Rodriguez. Was working at Denver General Hospital last night, and now I'm here, wherever here is." Jake looked around more carefully. He was lying in what appeared to be a clear container about the size of a single bed. The walls and ceiling of his prison were transparent, letting him see into dozens of similar containers arranged in rows. Each container held a person, and most of them were starting to wake up. "This can't be real," Jake said to himself, but he knew it was. The cold air on his skin, the strange smells, the fear in his stomach, all of it was too real to be a dream. "Your name?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "Jake Morrison." "I live about 10 minutes from your hospital." He sat up carefully, making sure not to hit his head again. "How did we get here?" I wish I knew. "The last thing I remember was treating a patient who came in with chest pain. It was around 2 in the morning, then nothing until I woke up here about an hour ago." Jake looked past Dr. Rodriguez and saw more containers stretching into the distance. Some held men, some women, even some children. All of them looked confused and scared. Many were still wearing the clothes they had been wearing when they went to sleep. Jake realized he was still in the t-shirt and shorts he had put on before. "Bed." "Look over there," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to their left. Jake turned and saw something that made his blood run cold. Moving between the rows of containers were tall, thin figures that definitely were not human. They walked on 2 legs like people, but they were at least 7 feet tall, with arms that seemed too long for their bodies. Their skin was gray and smooth, and their heads were larger than human heads, with eyes that were bigger and rounder than normal. "What are those things?" Jake whispered. "I think they're aliens," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. "I know how that sounds, but I can't think of any other explanation." One of the creatures stopped near their containers. It stood perfectly still for several seconds, looking at them with its large dark eyes. Jake stared back, trying to understand. What he was seeing? The alien's face had no expression that he could read. It was like looking at a machine that happened to be shaped like a living thing. The creature made a series of clicking and buzzing sounds, apparently talking to another alien nearby. Then it moved on without giving Jake or Dr. Rodriguez another. "Look, they act like we're animals in a zoo," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Or livestock," Jake replied grimly. Over the next few hours, more people woke up and began talking to each other through the transparent walls. Jake learned that everyone he could communicate with was from Denver or the surrounding area. There was a bus driver, a nurse, a computer programmer, several construction workers, office employees, students, and people from all walks of life. The computer programmer, Amy Johnson, was in a container across from Jake. She was young, maybe in her 20s, with short blonde hair and scared eyes. She had been working late at her apartment when everything went dark. "I was debugging code when my computer shut down," Amy told them. "All my equipment went dead at the same time. Then I must have passed out or something because the next thing, I knew I was here." "The power went out at my place too," Jake said. "Just for about a minute. Then it came back on." "Same here at the hospital," Dr. Rodriguez added. "All our equipment reset at exactly the same time." Amy was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if that wasn't a power outage? What if it was something else? "Like what?" Jake asked. "Like a scanning beam or something. Maybe they were mapping all our electronic systems before they took us." The idea made Jake feel sick. "Took us from where? Are we still on Earth?" "I don't think so," Amy said. She pointed upward. "Look at the ceiling." Jake craned his neck to look up. Far above them, the ceiling appeared to be transparent. Through it, he could see stars, but they were not arranged in any pattern he recognized. Earth's night sky had familiar constellations that he had learned as a child. These stars were completely foreign. "We're in space," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. On some kind of ship? How is that possible? Jake asked. How did they move all of us without anyone noticing? Maybe they didn't just take us, Amy said. Maybe they took everyone. Before anyone could respond to that terrifying thought, the aliens began moving through the rows of containers again. This time, they were not just observing. They stopped at certain containers and did something that made those containers open. With a soft hissing sound, Jake watched in horror as the aliens pulled people out of their prisons. Humans did not resist much. They seemed confused and weak, as if they had been drugged. The aliens led them away through a large opening in the wall. Where are they taking them? Dr. Rodriguez asked. I don't want to find out, Jake replied, but they did not have to wait long to learn the answer. None of the people who were taken away ever came back. As the hours passed, more containers were opened and more people disappeared. The remaining prisoners began to realize they were not being taken to safety. They were being processed like products in a factory. Jake tried to stay calm, but fear was eating at him from the inside. He had been in dangerous situations during his military service, but this was different. In combat, you had weapons and training and fellow soldiers to rely on. Here he was trapped and helpless, waiting for his turn to be taken to whatever fate awaited the others. We have to do something, he said to Dr. Rodriguez and Amy. Like what? Amy asked. We're locked in these boxes. Jake examined his container more carefully. The walls seemed solid, but there had to be a way to open them since the aliens could do it. He pressed against different areas, looking for buttons or switches or anything that might be a control mechanism. There, Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to a small panel near the foot of Jake's container. I saw one of those things touch something. Right there when they opened the other containers. Jake stretched his legs and managed to touch the panel with his toe. Nothing happened. Try pressing it with your hand, Amy suggested. Jake contorted his body and reached down to press the panel with his palm. Still nothing. Maybe it only responds to them, Dr. Rodriguez said. Or maybe it needs some kind of code or signal, Amy added. I wish I could see how their technology works. Jake lay back down, frustrated. He was not used to being helpless. In his old life, when there was a problem, he could usually fix it with his hands and some tools. Here, he had neither. We need a plan, he said. Even if we can't get out of these containers, we need to be ready for when they come for us. Ready for what? Dr. Rodriguez asked. We don't have any weapons or anything to fight with. We have our minds, Jake replied, and we have each other. These aliens think we're just dumb animals, but we're not. We can think and plan and work. Together, that has to count for something. Amy nodded. That's right. They don't seem to expect any resistance from us. That might be an advantage. If we get the chance to use it, Dr. Rodriguez said. Jake looked around at all the other containers, at all the frightened people waiting for their turn to be taken away. He thought about Pete Collins, who had been sitting on the front steps. When Jake went inside, was Pete here somewhere, or had he escaped? Was anyone still free on Earth, or had the entire human race been captured? The questions had no answers, but they gave Jake something to focus on besides his fear. Somewhere out there, people might still be fighting. And if he ever got the chance, he would fight too. He would not go quietly like the others. Aliens came for him. They would discover that humans were not as helpless as they appeared. Jake had been counting the aliens' movements for 3 days. They came through the holding area every 6 hours, always following the same path, always taking people from the same section. The creatures never seemed to sleep or rest. They just kept working like machines, processing humans in batches. They're predictable, Jake whispered to Dr. Rodriguez during one of the quiet periods. That's good for us. How is that good? She asked. We're still trapped in these boxes, because predictable enemies make mistakes, Jake replied. I learned that in the Marines. If someone always does the same thing at the same time, you can plan around it. Amy Johnson had been listening from her container across the way. Over the past few days, she had become their unofficial technical expert. She was the kind of person who noticed details that others missed. I've been watching their technology, Amy said quietly. The containers, the lights, even their tools. Everything seems to be connected somehow. What do you mean? Jake asked. Like a computer network, but biological. Look at the walls of your container. Do you see those thin lines running through them? Jake looked closer at the transparent walls. Amy was right. There were very faint lines, almost like veins, running through the material. They pulsed gently with a soft blue light. It's like the whole ship is alive, Amy continued. Or maybe it's a combination of living tissue and machines, biomechanical. Dr. Rodriguez had noticed something too. The people they take away, they're always chosen in a specific order. Not random. They're selecting based on something. Based on what? Jake asked. I think they're studying us, she replied. Taking samples of different types of people, different ages, different health conditions, different professions. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Samples for what? I don't want to think about it, Dr. Rodriguez said. But Jake was thinking about it, and the thoughts made him angry. These aliens had taken him from his home, locked him in a cage, and were treating humans like laboratory animals. The anger was good, though. Burned away the fear and gave him energy to think clearly. Amy said, You said their technology's all connected. Is there a way to disrupt it? Maybe, she replied. I've been watching the maintenance workers. They use devices that look like they control multiple systems at once. If I could get my hands on one of those devices. That's a big if, Dr. Rodriguez pointed out. Not as big as you might think, Jake said. He had been studying the maintenance workers too, but from a different angle. They always come alone when they're working on the containers. No guards. They don't think we're dangerous. We're not dangerous, Dr. Rodriguez said. We're locked up. For now, Jake replied. But that might change. Over the next several hours, Jake shared his observations with Amy and Dr. Rodriguez. He had noticed that the maintenance workers were smaller than the other aliens, and they seemed less alert. They focused completely on their work and rarely looked at the human prisoners. Amy had discovered something even more important. The control devices they use, they're not just tools. They're part of the workers' bodies. Like extra arms that grow out of their shoulders. Biological tools, Dr. Rodriguez said. That explains why they seem so comfortable using them. But here's the interesting part, Amy continued. When they're not using the tools, they retract into their bodies. That means the tools have to be activated somehow, probably by the workers' nervous systems. Jake was beginning to see possibilities. What if a human could use one of those tools? Possible, Dr. Rodriguez said. We don't have the right biology. Maybe not directly, Amy said. But what if we could trick the tool into thinking we did? How? Electricity. Human bodies generate electrical signals just like alien bodies do. The signals might be different, but if I could figure out the right frequency. Jake liked where this was going. You think you could make one of their tools work for us? I think it's worth trying. Amy replied. First, we'd have to get one. That problem was solved the next day when a maintenance worker came to repair a malfunction in the container next to Jake's. The worker was alone as usual and completely focused on its task. It extended one of its biological tools and began making adjustments to the container's control systems. Jake watched carefully, memorizing every detail of the worker's movements and the tool's functions. The device looked like a cross between an octopus tentacle and an electronic circuit board. It could change shape and seemed to interface directly with the ship's systems. The worker finished its repairs and prepared to leave. That was when Jake made his move. He began making loud groaning sounds and writhing around in his container as if he was in terrible pain. Help, he shouted. Something's wrong. I can't breathe. Dr. Rodriguez understood immediately and began calling for help too. He's having some kind of medical emergency. You have to do something. The maintenance worker stopped and looked at Jake's container. It seemed confused by the situation. These prisoners were not supposed to need medical attention. They were just being stored until processing. Jake continued his performance, gasping and clutching his chest. The worker moved closer to examine him through the transparent wall. That was exactly what Jake had hoped for. When the alien was close enough, Jake suddenly rolled to the side and slammed his shoulder against the wall of his container. The impact was much harder than the worker expected, and it stumbled backward in surprise, as the worker tried to regain its balance. Its biological tool extended automatically to grab something for support. The The tool pressed against the side of Jake's container, and Jake grabbed it with both hands. The alien tried to pull away, but Jake held on tight. He had worked construction for years, and his grip was strong. The worker made clicking and buzzing sounds that Jake assumed were alien curse words. "Amy now!" Jake shouted. Amy had been waiting for this moment. She reached through a small gap in her container and managed to touch the biological tool while Jake held it steady. The moment her fingers made contact, the tool began to glow brightly. The worker made more distressed sounds and tried harder to pull away, but something strange was happening. The tool was responding to Amy's touch, and she could feel it connecting to her nervous system. "It's working," Amy said. "I can feel it trying to read my brain patterns. Can you control it?" Jake asked. "I think so. It's like learning to use a new hand, but yes, I think I can do this." Amy concentrated hard, trying to understand how the tool worked. Images and sensations flowed through her mind as the device attempted to interface with her human biology. It was not a perfect connection, but it was enough. She directed the tool toward the control panel of her container and felt for the right sequence of commands. The tool responded sluggishly at first, then with growing confidence as Amy learned to work with it. There was a soft hissing sound, and Amy's container opened. The maintenance worker tried one more time to escape, but Amy was already out of her prison. She grabbed the worker's arm and held the biological tool firmly in place. "Jake, Dr. Rodriguez, I'm going to try to open your containers too," she said. "Hurry," Dr. Rodriguez urged. "Other aliens will come when they realize what's happening." Amy worked quickly, using the stolen tool to open first Jake's container, then Dr. Rodriguez's. The three humans stood together in the corridor between the rows of prisons. Finally free, but still surrounded by hundreds of other trapped people. Maintenance worker had stopped struggling and was now making soft clicking sounds, as if it was trying to communicate. "I think it's scared," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Good," Jake replied. "It should be scared. We're not livestock, and we're not going to act like it anymore." Amy was still connected to the biological tool, and through it, she could sense the ship's systems. It was like having access to a vast computer network, but one that was alive and constantly changing. "I can see how they control everything," she said with excitement. "The life support, the gravity, the containers, even the ship's navigation, it's all connected through these biological networks." "Can you free the others?" Jake asked. "I think so, but it will take time. And once I start opening containers, the aliens will know something is wrong." Jake looked around at all the frightened faces staring at them from the remaining containers. These people were counting on them now. They were looking for someone to lead them, someone to fight back against their captors. "Then we better work fast," Jake said. "And we better be ready for a fight." Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "What do you need me to do?" "Help me wake people up and get them organized," Jake replied. "Amy, you keep working on freeing more prisoners. We're going to need all the help we can get." "What about him?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, pointing to the maintenance worker. Jake looked at the alien. He was still making soft clicking sounds and seemed to be waiting to see what the humans would do next. "Keep it with us," Jake decided. "It might be useful. And besides, I want these aliens to learn something." "What's that?" Amy asked. Jake's expression was grim but determined. "That humans don't make good prisoners." Amy worked as fast as she could, using the alien tool to open container after container. Each time a person was freed, Jake and Dr. Rodriguez helped them stand and whispered quick instructions to stay quiet and stay close. Within an hour, they had freed nearly 50 people. The maintenance worker sat in the corner where Jake had put it, still making soft clicking sounds. It seemed more confused than angry, as if it could not understand what was happening. Jake kept one eye on the alien. While helping organize the growing group of freed humans, "We need weapons," said a man named Carl who had been a security guard before being captured. "These aliens have got to have some kind of weapons we can use." "First we need to know where we are and how many of them there are," Jake replied. "Amy, can you use that thing to get us more information about this ship?" Amy closed her eyes and concentrated on the biological tool still attached to her hand. Through it, she could sense the ship's systems like a vast living network. Flowed through her mind in patterns she was still learning to understand. "The ship is huge," she said after a few minutes. "Much bigger than I thought. There are thousands of containers like these spread across multiple levels, and there are other sections too. Living areas for the aliens, control rooms, something. That might be a weapons bay." "How many aliens?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "I can't tell exactly, but not as many as I expected. Maybe a few hundred total. They rely heavily on automated systems and these biological tools." Jake felt a spark of hope. "So we outnumber them." "By a lot," Amy confirmed. "But they have weapons, and we don't. They control the ship." "Not all of it," Jake said with a grin. "You control part of it now?" Before Amy could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The lights changed from blue to red, and new sounds echoed through the corridors. The maintenance worker in the corner began making urgent clicking noises. "They know," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Good," Jake replied. "Let them come." "Amy, can you open more containers faster?" "I'll try," she said, but the effort was clearly wearing on her. The alien tool was not designed for human use, and maintaining the connection was exhausting. Heavy footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Jake moved to the entrance and peered around the corner. 6 tall aliens were approaching, carrying devices that looked like weapons. Unlike the maintenance worker, these aliens moved with purpose and seemed ready for trouble.
"Everyone get back,"
Jake whispered. "Stay behind the containers and keep quiet." The first alien guard entered the holding area and immediately saw the open containers and freed humans. It raised its weapon and made loud buzzing sounds, probably calling for backup. Jake did not give it the chance to fire. He tackled the alien from the side, using his full weight and the momentum of surprise. The alien was taller than him, but Jake was built like a brick wall from years of construction work. They crashed into a row of containers with tremendous force. The alien's weapon clattered across the floor, and Carl, the security guard, dove for it. The weapon was strange and organic-looking. But Carl managed to figure out which end was dangerous and pointed it at the other approaching aliens. "Stay back," Carl shouted. The remaining aliens hesitated. They had never encountered armed resistance from their prisoners before and seemed unsure how to respond. That hesitation gave Amy the opening she needed. She sent a surge of energy through the ship's biological network, overloading the lighting systems in their section. The corridor plunged into darkness, except for the red emergency lights. In the chaos that followed, the freed humans scattered and attacked. They had no training and no real weapons, but they had something the aliens had not expected: desperate courage. These people were fighting for their lives and their freedom. That made them dangerous. Dr. Rodriguez grabbed a piece of broken container and used it to trip one of the aliens. A construction worker named Bob picked up a metal tool that had fallen from the maintenance worker and swung it like a club. A young woman who had been a nurse managed to get behind one of the aliens and hit it in what she hoped was a vulnerable spot. The aliens tried to retreat and regroup, but more humans were being freed every minute as Amy continued opening containers. Soon there were over 100 people in the corridor, and the aliens were completely outnumbered. "We need to move," Jake said as he helped restrain the alien he had tackled. "More of them will come, and they'll be better prepared." "Where can we go?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. Amy was still connected to the ship's systems. "There's a maintenance section about 2 levels down. Lots of equipment we might be able to use, and it's not well guarded." "Can you get us there?" Jake asked. "I think so. We'll have to move fast." Jake looked around at the crowd of freed humans. Most of them were scared and confused, still wearing the clothes they had been sleeping in when they were captured. They were not soldiers, but they were alive and free, and that was something. "Listen to me," Jake said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "We're going to fight our way out of here. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we're not going to let these things treat us like animals anymore." A woman raised her hand. "How do we fight them? We don't know anything about their weapons or their ship." "We learn as we go," Jake replied. "And we use what we do know. We're human beings. Tough. We're smart. and we don't give up. That has to be enough. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward.
I'll help.
I'll help anyone who gets hurt. We look out for each other, just like we would back home. Amy had opened the last container in their section. Nearly 200 people now stood in the corridor, looking to Jake for leadership. The responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders, but he accepted it. Amy, lead the way, he said. Everyone else, stay together and stay quiet until we have to. Fight. They moved through the ship's corridors like a slow-moving river of determined people. Amy used her connection to the biological systems to disable security sensors and unlock doors. When they encountered alien guards, humans swarmed them with sheer numbers and desperation. The aliens' weapons were powerful, but they were designed for controlling individual prisoners, not fighting large groups. More importantly, the aliens had never needed to fight this kind of battle before. They were confused and disorganized. Halfway to the maintenance section, they encountered a larger group of aliens, led by one that was even taller than the others. This alien wore what looked like armor and carried a bigger weapon. When it saw the escaped humans, it made loud, screeching sounds that echoed throughout the ship. That's their commander, Amy said. I can sense it through the ship's network. It's trying to coordinate a response, and we stop it, Jake said. The alien commander raised its weapon and fired at the crowd of humans. The blast hit a man near the front, and he collapsed, screaming. Dr. Rodriguez immediately ran to help him, while the other humans scattered for cover. Jake picked up a piece of metal pipe from the floor and charged straight at the commander. The alien fired again, but Jake rolled to the side and kept coming. When he reached the alien, he swung the pipe as hard as he could at what he hoped were the creature's legs. The pipe connected with a wet thudding sound, and the alien stumbled. Jake hit it again, this time aiming for its weapon hand. The alien dropped its weapon and made angry, screeching sounds. Before the alien could recover, Carl and Bob arrived to help. The three humans tackled the commander together, using their combined weight to bring it down. The alien was strong, but it could not fight three determined humans at once. The other aliens in the group saw their commander fall and began to panic. They had never encountered this level of resistance before, and their training had not prepared them for humans who fought back effectively. The weapon, Jake shouted. Amy grabbed the commander's weapon and immediately felt it connecting to her nervous system through the biological tool she still carried. The weapon was much more powerful than the others, and she could sense its connection to the ship's main systems. I can use this, she said with excitement. I can access their central computer network. Do it, Jake said. Find out everything you can about this ship and how to stop it. Amy closed her eyes and let the alien technology flow through her mind. Information came in waves: ship schematics, crew locations, communication systems, something that made her gasp with shock. Jake, she said urgently, this isn't just a prison ship. What do you mean? It's a weapon, a planet killer. They're not just taking people from Earth. They're planning to destroy it completely. The words hit Jake like a physical blow when soon, maybe hours, the weapon systems are already charging. Jake looked around at the 200 freed humans, who were counting on him for leadership. Behind them were thousands more still trapped in containers. And somewhere below them, far away on Earth, were millions of people who had no idea what was coming. Then we don't just escape, Jake said grimly. We take this ship. That's impossible, Dr. Rodriguez protested. We're just ordinary people, no, Jake replied, looking at the fallen alien commander and the frightened but determined faces around him. We're human beings, and human beings don't let their planet get destroyed without a fight. Amy's mind raced through the alien ship's computer systems. The weapon charging sequence was already 60% complete, and Earth hung defenseless in space below them. She could see through the ship's sensors that other alien vessels were positioned around the planet, all preparing to fire at the same time. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe 2 hours before they're ready to fire, Amy replied. But there's something else. I can see the communication network between all their ships. If I can access the main control center, I might be able to send a signal that stops all of them. Where's the control center? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Top level of the ship. heavily guarded, and we'd have to go through the main alien living areas to get there. Jake looked at the 200 freed humans gathered around them. Most were still scared and confused, but they were listening intently. These ordinary people had already proven they could fight when they had to. We split up, Jake decided. Rodriguez, take half the people and continue freeing prisoners. We're going to need everyone we can get. Amy and I will take the other half and head for the control center. That's suicide, protested Carl, the security guard. You'll be outnumbered 10-1, maybe, Jake said. But if we don't try, everyone on Earth dies? I'd rather go down fighting than live knowing I didn't even try to save my planet. A woman named Sarah, who had been a teacher, stepped forward. I'm coming with you. These monsters took me away from my students. I want to make them pay. More people volunteered until Jake had to turn some away. Everyone wanted to fight, but they needed people to free the remaining prisoners. 2. Amy used her connection to the ship's systems to map the fastest route to the control center. It would take them through 3 levels of alien living spaces and past multiple guard stations. The odds were terrible, but they had no choice. Before we go, Jake said to the group, I want you all to know something. 3 days ago, we were just regular people living regular lives. Today, we're fighting to save our world. That makes us heroes, every single one of us. The group began moving through the ship's corridors. Amy disabled security systems as they went, but she could only do so much without alerting the aliens to their exact location. Soon, alien guards were responding to their position. The first battle happened in a large room that looked like some kind of alien cafeteria. 20 aliens were feeding when the humans burst through the doors. The aliens were completely unprepared for combat, and most didn't even have weapons. Jake's group overwhelmed them quickly. But the noise brought more guards running. Soon they were fighting running battles through corridor after corridor as they climbed toward the ship's upper levels. Sarah, the teacher, turned out to be surprisingly good at using alien weapons. I hunt deer back home, she explained after taking down 2 guards with precise shots. These aren't much different from rifles. Amy was having trouble maintaining her connection to the ship's systems while moving and fighting. The biological tool was draining her energy faster than she could recover it. But she pushed herself harder, knowing that millions of lives depended on her staying connected. I can see the control center, she gasped as they reached the final level. Are 12 aliens inside, including their overall commander, the one in charge of the whole fleet? 12 against 50, Jake said. I like those odds. But when they reached the control center, they found it was not going to be that simple. The room was protected by heavy doors and energy barriers. The aliens inside had seen them coming and were fully armed and ready. They're preparing to fire early, Amy said with panic in her voice. The commander is overriding the charging sequence. They're going to destroy Earth in the next 20 minutes, whether the weapon is fully charged or not. Jake felt cold rage building in his chest. These aliens were going to murder his entire species rather than let humans fight back. They would rather destroy Earth than admit that their livestock could resist. Amy, can you get us through those barriers? I think so, but it will take everything I have left. And once I do it, I won't be able to help you in the fight. Do it, Jake said. We'll handle the fighting. Amy pressed both hands against the nearest wall and sent every bit of energy she had into the ship's systems. The biological networks throughout the control center overloaded and sparked. Emergency lights flickered, and the energy barriers around the doors began to fail. Now, Jake shouted. The humans poured through the failing barriers like water through a broken dam. The aliens inside the control center were tall and well-armed. They had never faced anything like a group of desperate humans. Fighting for their planet's survival, Jake went straight for the overall commander, a massive alien wearing elaborate armor and carrying a weapon that crackled with energy. The alien fired. The blast scorched the wall where Jake's head had been a second before. Jake rolled behind a control console and came up, swinging a metal pipe he had picked up in the corridor. The pipe connected with the alien's weapon hand, and sparks flew as the weapon short-circuited. The alien commander was strong and fast, but Jake had been in more fights than he could count. He knew how to use his lower center of gravity and his human stubbornness to his advantage. When the alien tried to grab him, Jake ducked under its long arms and hid it in what he hoped was its stomach. Around the room, other humans were fighting, with everything they had. Sarah, the teacher, had found cover behind a computer terminal and was picking off aliens with captured weapons. Bob, the construction worker, was using a wrench like a warhammer. Even people with no fighting experience were throwing themselves at the aliens with desperate courage. Amy had collapsed near the entrance, drained by her effort to break the barriers, but she was still connected to the ship's systems, and she could see what was happening throughout the fleet. Jake. She called weakly, "The weapon is charging faster. 2 minutes until they fire." Jake was still fighting the alien commander. The creature was wounded but not defeated, and it was fighting with the desperation of someone who knew its entire plan was falling apart. "Amy, can you stop the weapon?" Jake shouted, while dodging another attack. "Not from here. I'll need to get to the main control panel, but there are 2 aliens guarding it." Sarah heard her and immediately changed targets. Her next 2 shots dropped the aliens guarding the control panel. "Go," she yelled to Amy. "We've got you covered." Amy crawled across the floor toward the main control panel, pushing herself beyond exhaustion. When she reached it, she pressed her hands against the organic surface and dove deep into the ship's central computer systems. The weapon charging sequence was at 95%. In 1 minute and 30 seconds, enough energy would be released to crack Earth's crust and kill every living thing on the planet. But Amy could see something else in the computer network. The weapon systems were not just connected to this ship. They were connected to every ship in the fleet through the same biological network she was tapped into. If she could overload the network, she might be able to stop all the ships at once. Jake finally managed to get his hands around the alien commander's throat. The creature was making choking sounds and clawing at his arms, but Jake held on with grim determination. "This is for Earth," he growled and squeezed harder. The alien commander went limp. "Jake," Amy screamed. 30 seconds. Amy put everything she had left into one massive surge of energy through the biological network. She felt the system fighting her, trying to reject the human interference. But she pushed harder, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she had. Throughout the fleet, weapon systems began to malfunction. Energy buildups discharged harmlessly into space. Mute computer networks crashed and rebooted. Entire ships lost power as their biological systems overloaded. The countdown reached 0. But instead of destroying Earth, the alien weapons simply shut down. Amy collapsed unconscious, but she was smiling. Jake looked around the control center. Half his people were wounded, but they were alive. More importantly, through the transparent walls, he could see Earth hanging peacefully in space, unmarked and unharmed. "Is it over?" Sarah asked. Jake walked to the main communication panel and managed to activate it using gestures he had watched. "The aliens make..." His voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. "This is Jake Morrison of Earth," he said. "Came to our planet thinking we were helpless animals. You were wrong. We are human beings and we do not surrender. We do not give up. And we do not let anyone threaten our home." He paused, looking out at the stars. "Any species that wants to be Earth's friend is welcome. Any species that threatens Earth will get the same treatment you got today. We are not livestock. We are not primitives. We are humanity, and we are dangerous when you make us angry." Jake turned off the communication system and looked at his fellow humans. Construction workers, teachers, doctors, security guards, ordinary people who had become the saviors of their world. "Let's go home," he said. 6 months later, Jake was back at his construction job in Denver. The work was the same, but everything else had changed. Humans now knew they were not alone in the universe. And the universe now knew that humanity was not to be underestimated. The alien ships had been taken apart by human scientists and engineers. Some of the technology would help Earth defend itself.